Hello and welcome to this demo on using the Watch panel in UiPath Studio. In this video, we'll learn about adding values to the Watch panel, adding expressions, monitoring the values of variables and expressions during debugging, as well as removing entries. As a quick reminder, the project that we use reads employee data from an Excel file, opens a browser window, navigates to a web form, and iterates through each row of the data table to enter the employee information into the form. To see the Watch panel, we need to run the workflow in debug mode. But first, let's set a breakpoint on the multiple assign activity, and then click Debug. It's executing. And it reached the breakpoint. On the left-hand side, we can see the Watch panel. It can be set to display the values of variables, arguments, and user-defined expressions that are in scope. These values are updated after each activity is executed while debugging. As mentioned earlier, this panel is only visible in debug mode. Now let's see how we can add variables to the Watch panel. To begin with, we can add variables from the Locals panel. We'll hover over the first-name variable, right-click and select Add to Watch. And the variable's name, type and value are displayed in the Watch panel. Another way is to add variables from the Variables or the Arguments panels. Let's open the Variables panel, right-click the last-name variable, and select Add Watch. We can also enter variables or expressions directly into the Watch panel. We'll click the empty cell in the expression column and add a simple expression to find out the number of characters in the first-name string variable. An exception is thrown for the value field. Do you know why that is? Indeed, the activity has not been executed yet. Keep an eye on what happens in the Watch panel after we continue with the debugging. Alright, let's also add a simple concatenation. First name plus space plus last name. We can also add an expression to retrieve the value of the email column for the current row of our data table as a string. Current row of email. Dot toString. We receive the value as soon as we hit enter. Let's add one last variable, DT users. This is another way that we can add variables to the Watch panel from Data Manager. And here are the values for this variable. Let's also quickly find out the number of rows in our data table. And it's 5. Alright, we're done with adding our variables and expressions to the Watch panel. It's time to continue debugging. We'll click Step Over. OK, it executed the multiple assign activity. In the Watch panel, we can see the values assigned to the first-name variable, the last-name variable, the result for our concatenation, and the length result for the first-name variable. Let's click Step Into. It executes the Type Into first-name activity, and the value Greg is added to the form. If you click on Step Into again, what will happen? Give it a try on your own and see what happens. Moving on, it's useful to know that you can copy a value from the Watch panel by right-clicking in the Value cell. One last thing about the Watch panel. Aside from copying an entry, we can remove it by right-clicking in the expression cell and selecting Delete, or by clicking on a row in the Watch panel and pressing the Delete key, or select Clear All. And this concludes our demo on using the Watch panel. For a quick recap, we can use the Watch panel to monitor variables, arguments, and expression values. These values are updated after each activity is executed while debugging. The Watch panel is only visible in debug mode. Have a great debugging experience, and thanks for watching.